Hi, welcome firstly to my YouTube channel, Nambucca Birth Photographer. I started the channel because I want to make a little catalogue, I guess, of birth stories. Now, some of you might have seen my birth story. I told it live on Instagram, and then I lost it, so I couldn't share it. So I thought I would tell you my birth story again now, and upload it as my very first video to YouTube. So I didn't plan to fall pregnant, no, and I actually didn't ever plan to have kids. So I was, first of all, I had a decision to make, let's put it that way, and I chose to keep Phoebe and to become something that I never ever planned or never really wanted to be, and that is a mum. So I did not enjoy being pregnant at all. I hated it. It was really uncomfortable. I used to call Phoebe a little octopus, and I swore she was having fucking parties in there, kicking the shit out of me continuously. When I would lay down to go to bed about 10 o'clock every night, she would get the hiccups. It was just awful. So much so that I didn't even bother to get maternity photos, because I was like, why would I want memories of this most uncomfortable time in my life? And I'm a photographer and I didn't get photos done, so go figure. Anyway, the pregnancy all went well, and it was a Wednesday night, about 9 o'clock, that my contractions really started coming pretty thick and fast. And I think I timed them at one point. They were at like 3 minutes apart. My waters broke on my bedroom floor, and my now husband was at home, Gaz, and you know, Phoebe is number 5 kid for Gaz. So I was like, you know, is it time to go to the hospital? What do I do? And Gaz was like, well, I don't know, everyone's different. And so I ended up ringing the hospital, the maternity ward, the midwife there, and said, I think I'm in labour. I think I need to come in. And the first thing that the midwife said to me, and there was no continuity of care for me at our local hospital. So the midwife that I got looked at my files and she said, oh, you didn't have the group B strep test. Or what did that come back as? And I was like, I didn't have it. She's like, oh, well, you need antibiotics. And I was like, no. And that for me was the first point of where things started to go wrong for me. So Bear, Chewy! Sorry, I just had to move. I was at the skate park and we got overrun by kids on skateboards and stuff, go figure. Anyway, so I guess what I'm trying to say is, as soon as I called the hospital, I got some negative vibes and I felt it, and it worried me, and it made me even more scared because I was one of those first time mums that I was terrified. You know, I was so scared about being pregnant, about having to push a baby out of my vagina, about having a newborn. Like, I was so scared and I was just in denial, and the way that I dealt with that is just by shutting off. And I did not go to any classes, I didn't read any books, I had not even watched a birth video, I had not spoken to anyone about it. I said to the midwives when they asked me what my birth plan was, I was like, yeah, winging it. My body's built for this, I'll be fine. Little did I know all the little intricacies and the ins and outs and the politics and whatever that go along with birth. And looking back now, I really wish that someone had given me that insight, and that's kind of why I want to create this channel, and why I love being a birth photographer, is just to help those first-time mums hopefully get over the scary little hump in a cool way. So anyway, despite the midwife being a bit of a bitch, we got in the car and drove into the hospital, and you know, I mean, it's probably the most uncomfortable drive of your life. So gets into the hospital, and yeah, like I said, a midwife I'd never met before. She was really old school, and I wanted to get in the bath, and so they have to fill the bath at the hospital, my local hospital, and it's a really big, beautiful bath. It's a blow-up one, so it was going to take a long time to fill. So she started filling the bath for me, and she just said, you know, lay down, relax, do your thing. So I did. So Gaz and I, we laid down on the bed, and Gaz fell asleep, and we just sort of dozed in and out. I had a check, an internal examination, and at that stage I was 4 centimeters dilated. And then, you know, morning came along, the midwives came in, midwives that I knew, Phoebe's in the background, anyway, my whole labour just slowed down. So my contractions actually, you know, they got further apart. They weren't increasing in intensity. And I was offered to go into the bath again, but I declined. I don't know why. I wish someone had said, you know, if you jump in the bath, it might make you feel better. It might, you know, get the oxytocin flowing, and then, you know, it might pick things up again. But no one, you know, they just said, yeah, okay, whatever. Can anyone see my baby? she's somewhere. So at about mid-morning, the doctor came in. Now again, this was a new doctor, a doctor I'd never met at this hospital, and in fact this was her first shift at maternity. And she came in and she said, oh, you didn't have the group B strep test. Oh, you need antibiotics. And along came the antibiotics. Like I had no fucking choice. And I didn't have the strength by then to say, hang on a second, like they don't even test for that in Queensland. Why the fuck should I have the antibiotics? I said no, full well knowing what I was doing, but just didn't. I guess in birth sometimes you lose your voice. And because everything had slowed down, they wanted me to have augmentation. So it's kind of like induction, except they weren't inducing my labour. I was already in labour. They were just augmenting it, you know, kicking it up the butt, telling it to go, you know, get this fucking shit happening. So, and to do that I had to be transferred to another hospital, because the hospital that I was at isn't big enough to cope with that sort of stuff. So lunchtime on Thursday, I was transferred. And it's about an hour's drive. So I was transferred in the ambulance in labour, fucking lying down on my back because I couldn't sit up, with a fucking, you know, stupid antibiotic drip in my arm, all the way up to the other hospital. Yes, another location change. So in the ambulance, we get to the hospital, the new hospital. We're taken to the new birthing suite, which isn't as comfortable as the last place that we were at. And I had lunch, so I remember it was chicken and salad, and I was actually quite impressed with the lunch. I didn't really eat much though, I remember that. So it's Thursday lunchtime. We waited for a little while, and then they came in and put the drip in, the oxytocin drip. So I'm attached to the drip now with a, in my hand, and something that I wasn't aware of, that I didn't know, that if you're induced or your labour is augmented, you need to be monitored. So your heart rate and your baby's heart rate needs to be monitored. So I had the bands on, and they were fucking annoying. So because I had the bands on, the bands weren't waterproof, and I couldn't get in the bath, which was what I really, really wanted. I wanted to get in the bath because I had those bands. They just simply would not let me. They just said no. Now the other thing about this band, the particular band that I had on, every time I had a contraction, it would stop recording Phoebe's heartbeat. So it was, in effect, ineffective. Like it was pointless. So to fix that problem, what the midwife did was stand right next to me, or sit right next to me, holding the monitor to my stomach the whole time. The whole time I was in labour, I had a midwife right next to me holding the monitor to my stomach. And every time I had a contraction, she would say, "You're doing really well, Sarah. You're doing really well." It was hell. And I just remember going inside myself because there was nothing else that I could do. Now, come here. Yeah. Now, yay. So this continued for quite some time. My mum and sister were still at the hospital at this point. And then it got really late. I remember I had the gas, but the gas, I don't know, didn't seem to be working, and I couldn't suck hard enough on the fucking thing to get any relief or anything from it. So I remember I chucked the gas, but I think, I'm not sure what time it was, but at one point they gave me morphine. And the morphine was great because the morphine gave me a little bit of a break, and it meant that I was able to sleep for a little bit. So I had a bit of a nap in this complete drugged up morphine state, and I rested for a while. When that wore off, the contractions were still coming thick and fast. I was trying different positions, but still having the problem of that monitor. And I remember I wasn't vocal at all. I remember being very silent, and even to the point that one of the midwives said to me, "Oh gosh, you're really progressing quite well. I wouldn't, have a clue. I wouldn't know." So hopefully the last location change. So all this is going on, and my mum and it got really late, so my mum and my sister went home. And I remember, coming out of the morphine. They went to give me more, but I don't think they actually gave me the second shot of morphine. They appeared to, but it didn't work. And anyway, so I just laboured through the contractions. I don't remember them getting any faster, or it just seemed to be the same the whole way through. And then they told me to push. What's the matter? Can I have this for a second? Okay, now you can play with it.
Mommy.
So I actually didn't feel the urge to push myself. They just told me to push. Like, they just said, now it's time to start pushing. So they laid me down on a bed, and when the midwives told me to push, I pushed. And I remember by this stage, it was close to 6 o'clock on Friday morning, and I was just done. I was exhausted. I was spent. Do you mind? So, here, look, play with those. So this went on for a little while where they still kept making me push. And I just looked at them and said, I can't. I'm exhausted. So they brought the doctor in, and this was, I had about 3 different midwife changes, and I don't remember any of their names or faces. And I don't remember the doctor's name, but I do remember his face. And he was super helpful. So he delivered Phoebe via ventouse. So he pulled her out, and he told me exactly what he was doing, when he was doing it. He was very gentle, and he gave me the perfect instructions. So he told me what to do, when to do it. It worked, and it got Phoebe out. Now, Phoebe's head came out, and apparently the cord was around her neck, so they fixed that up, and then she was a little twisted. So the doctor asked if the student midwife could just turn her, and of course, I'm exhausted, so I said, yeah, sure, whatever. At this point, I probably would have said yes to anything. So Gary was watching everything. Gary said, Phoebe came out and she was looking. This is, her eyes wide open. She was looking. She was ready to go. And so the student midwife grabbed Phoebe around the head and tried to turn her. And Gary said that he just saw her neck pop up and her eyes pop out of her head. And he's telling me this afterwards. But at that point, obviously she'd done something wrong. She wasn't doing it right. So the doctor sort of shoved her out of the way and got back in there and, turned Phoebe and out she came. So they placed Phoebe on my chest really briefly. And then they took her over to the baby table. I don't know the technical terms for all this stuff, but where the baby doctor does their thing. And at this point, I remember looking at Gary, and he looked really worried. And I just looked at him and I said, it's okay. Then Phoebe started crying and they brought her back over. Now, I didn't know, but Phoebe had an APGAR of 2. That was my computer. From the desk to the floor. Thanks, Phoebe. So Phoebe had an APGAR of 2, which isn't great, so she needed resus. And I guess after her birth and whatever, I still didn't understand the gravity of that. So that was my birth. And going further into that, I am talking. You talking about it, are you? Do you remember when you were born? Now, going further into it, probably about 5-6 months ago now, I won a Reiki session with my friend Belle, who is also a doula. And I won this Reiki session, and I said to her, can Phoebe have it? Because Phoebe she's not a good sleeper. And, you know, we didn't sleep chain or anything, and, you know, I haven't slept since she was born. Anyway, so Belle was, you know, doing her magic on Phoebe, and she's sort of, you know, in her back here, and Phoebe's sitting really still, and Belle's, you know, playing around up here with her neck. And Belle turned around and she said to me, and Belle knew nothing about Phoebe's birth story. Belle turned around and said to me, did Phoebe have a traumatic birth? Did Phoebe have a traumatic birth? And this bit still gets me. This is the bit that gets me the most. It was at that point that I realised that while the birth was not the nicest thing for me, and I was somewhat traumatised by it, at that point I realised that it was traumatic for her. Now, Phoebe is Gary's number 5 baby. He's got 5 beautiful kids. And at that point I also remembered the look of fear on his face. And I realised the effect that those things had on not just me, but on Phoebe. And apparently Belle was saying that kids that have had traumatic births are usually the bad sleepers. Oh, there you go. Drop the money. And it made me think about birth and birth stories and birth trauma for men, for dads as well. So something that I want to bring to this channel is not just birth stories for women, but birth stories from a father's perspective too. So I'm hoping to get Gary on here. We'll see how we go with that. I'm not making any promises. But I want to share these stories. I want you all to know that you're not alone, and we're all in birth together, because fucking we were all born, right? And I want to make it so less scary, I guess. I think, you know, I mentioned earlier, prior to being pregnant and having baby, I was terrified of birth. I'm not terrified of birth now. And I want other first-time mums, or people that have become mums unexpectedly, to not be like me and to educate yourself. And I want women who have pregnant friends that have never been pregnant before, I want them to fucking talk to them. Tell them what they need. Give them what they need. If they don't want it, I almost want you to just fucking force it on them. I wish someone had forced more information onto me. I wish someone had prepared me more. I wish I had had a doula. I think that is, you know, if one of my friends became pregnant now, who was terrified and had never been pregnant before and kept saying to me, I'm just gonna wing it, I would just get her fucking doula, just get her one. Yeah. Anyway, that's it from me. I'm so sorry that this first video is at like 5 different locations, but you know, this is my home. And I am hoping to upload videos to YouTube every Sunday, birth stories. Obviously, I thought I should start with mine because I can't expect you all to be vulnerable with me if I'm not vulnerable with you first. If you're keen to share your birth story, let me know. Otherwise, you can check out all of my Instagram posts. You can look at Nambucca Birth Photographer on Facebook. I have Snapchat, and of course, make sure you subscribe here. Yeah, thanks.